Welcome back to America Decides. Some of former President Trump's closest allies are planning to infuse, quote, Christian nationalism and their ideas into that administration if, in fact, the former president secures a second term. These efforts are being spearheaded by a gentleman named Russell Vought. Not necessarily a household name, but someone who's important. He was Trump's former director of the Office of Management and Budget. Vought is now the president of something called the Center for Renewing America. It's a think tank. Alex Ward joins us now. He's a national security reporter with Politico. He is also the author of a brand new book just out this week, The Nationalists, The Fight to Restore American Foreign Policy After Trump. Alex, great to see you. Congratulations on the book. We'll get to that in a minute, I promise. What is your reporting on the intentions of Russell Vought and those around him and Christian nationalism and a potential second Trump term?
So Russell Vought, as you noted, runs the Center for Renewing America, and that is a Trump-aligned think tank. He's the former Office of Management and Budget Director, and Russ is part of this constellation of actors that are preparing Trump and everyone around him for a second term. Now, Russ is close to a bunch of so-called Christian nationalists who most basically put, there's a lot of debate about it, but most basically put are folks who believe that Christianity should infuse almost every aspect of public life. In other words, the religion is a major part of deciding which laws get passed, which laws should be considered.
And should inform policy.
Correct.
Whether it's regulatory policy, whether it's things that the government either incentivizes or disincentivizes. And there are all sorts of mechanisms by which the government at the federal level can do both.
Right. And that's right. And one thing that Russ has said explicitly is when considering someone's immigration status to the United States, they should think about whether or not they are a Christian or follow biblical teachings as opposed to where they come from or not. So this is something that CRA is working on. It is one of many bullet points that they've been thinking about. Others are invoking the Insurrection Act on day one or doing other interesting.
Alex, I've also heard things that have come out from this think tank about divorce, about single motherhood, about contraception. What have you heard? What have you learned?
Yes, that's some of the things that they're interested in and that folks close to Russ are interested in. So one of them would be banning same-sex marriage. Others would be potentially ending access to contraceptives or ending abortion altogether. Another one that's become increasingly popular is ending no-fault divorce. So no couple is allowed to get divorced unless one can prove fault or cheating or something like that. Also, in one general thought that's been out there is having the government force fathers to take care of their children if they've proven to not do anything wrong necessarily. So it's a bit of an intrusion of government into personal life.
But it also sounds to me, Alex, like a kind of rewinding of the great reel of American nostalgia back to something around the early 20th century, or maybe even earlier than that.
Well, it's more in their mind. They will not say we're not trying to establish a theocracy. It's just that America is a Christian nation built on Christian values, right? Some of these folks would like to see the 10 Commandments in public schools, stuff like that. And so in this case, what they're thinking about is how can a Christian worldview inform public policy? And I should note, a Christian worldview is not partisan necessarily. There's a conservative view, a more centrist view, a liberal view. This is a strictly conservative, somewhat hardline conservative Christian view.
We are continuing our look at Donald Trump's relationship with evangelical Christians. In tonight's Eye on America, CBS's Major Garrett has an interview with a man who doesn't talk to reporters often, a self-described Christian nationalist. He sees Trump's movement as more than defeating Democrats.
You can't make America great again until you restore an awakening with God again.
Under a massive circus tent in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, Lance Wallnau is the ringleader, preaching Christian nationalism and political activism to a rapturous following.
Unless you learn how to mobilize and how to move in at a local level, then you're letting the devil dominate your culture.
Wallnau is a business consultant and firebrand influencer in the growing Christian nationalist movement, reaching millions of believers across his platforms. He views Trump as a once-in-a-thousand-years figure, flawed, yet divinely chosen to navigate chaotic times.
I caught that idea in 2015 when I first met Trump, and I got a lot of pushback after he got elected because they were searching around for how could the evangelicals justify voting for some, barbaric character like Trump, and they're hypocrites that they are.
Wallnau admits that Trump, twice divorced and roundly accused of other moral failings, does not align with traditional evangelical expectations.
I said, listen, give the guy some time. He doesn't know who we are, but his values resonate with our community. God's raising up an outsider. If at the end of the day we haven't activated you to either be a poll watcher, a poll worker, somebody involved with election integrity, or somebody that can help someone else get out a vote, I'm not sure that we've done what we have to do.
What I watched today, was that about spiritual revival or political activism?
That's a combination platter. It's about spiritual activism.
Can an energized Christian sit out this election?
I don't see how anyone with moral clarity sits out an election like this. I mean, the issues are so clear. And I tell Christians, I say, you know what would you say during the Civil War?
The terminology at Wallnau's revivals is apocalyptic.
It's not us that's dangerous, it's them.
Describing a spiritual battle between pious believers and demons who speak through Democrats or liberals.
It's not just a person, it's a spiritual force.
Demonic or?
Yeah, demonic, yeah. They can influence people with bodies.
They believe that it was a demonic conspiracy that stole the 2020 election.
Religious scholar Matthew Taylor has made a careful study of Wallnau and others in the charismatic Christian movement.
So they're using the experiences of charismatic spirituality to galvanize Christians politically and saying, now you've had these experiences, now we need to go and use that to change our country.
Wallnau rarely grants interviews, but is willing to describe, as he sees it, the forces arrayed against Trump.
He's virtually up against academia, media, government, the intelligence communities, and to an extent, a whole lot of corporate businesses.
He believes hyper-focused Christian political energy can overcome those perceived obstacles.
The tendency to just look at elections, pray about them, eat popcorn, watch the result, and then go to bed is over. Christians as believers probably should be engaged in this process of shaping culture far more aggressively and intentionally from now on.
As for their impact on the election, God only knows. For Eye on America, I'm Major Garrett in Eau Claire, Wisconsin.
Christians, get out and vote just this time. You won't have to do it anymore. 4 more years, you know what? It'll be fixed. It'll be fine. You won't have to vote anymore, my beautiful Christians. I love you, Christians. I'm a Christian. I love you. Get out. You got to get out and vote. In 4 years, you don't have to vote again.
Well, he's going to get a third term. So Trump 28. Trump is going to be president in 28. And people just ought to get accommodated with that.
So what about the 22nd Amendment?
There's many different alternatives. At the appropriate time, we'll lay out what the plan is. But there's a plan, and President Trump will be the president in 28. The end point is we are in charge. We control the institutions. We control the political process. We need to finish what we started. And President Trump is the instrument, a providential instrument to finish that, to finish this job.
Do you think Trump was sent from God?
I do. I do.
Tell me more.
It was divine intervention.
What Pastor Marsh is describing is Christian nationalism.
Promoting the God Bless the USA Bible.
Far from distancing himself from Christian nationalism, Trump has embraced it, even selling a $60 Bible complete with the founding documents.
You brought me a Trump Bible, God bless the USA. And then we say, the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ be with you all, amen. And then all of a sudden you have the Declaration of Independence. What's the implication there, Donnie? That government has been set in place to enact the will of Christ somehow?
God calls people, and they're not perfect people. So he has to call someone that's going to take a stand. And that's what Trump is doing. He is fulfilling his calling.
He's an instrument of divine will, and you can tell this of how he's pulled this off. We need him for at least one more term, right? And he'll get that in 28.
You won't have to vote anymore, my beautiful Christians. I love you, Christians. I'm a Christian. I love you. Get out. You got to get out and vote. In 4 years, you don't have to vote again.
If you look at Trump over the arc of history, what he's accomplished and what he's been able to lead us to, I mean, he's equivalent of Moses. I mean, he has led our people back right now to the bank of the promised land to make sure that we're very close to actually redoing this, making the changes that have to be made to save our country and to return America to her greatness, make America great again.
Marsh says equating Christianity and American patriotism the way some of the Trump movement do is dangerous.
It can create a cult-like attitude towards the leaders that are there, because they're no longer just, oh, that's the right guy, I like his policies. Now it's, oh, Jesus has chosen that person. So we have to follow that person to wherever they go.
Do you think Trump was sent from God?
I do. I do.
Tell me more.
It was
about
divine intervention.
Honestly, it breaks my heart.
What about people who say, you're overreacting? I love my country. I'm a Christian. I love the Bible. I love the founding documents. What's so bad about putting them together in one book?
As a local pastor with my local church, I think what's so bad about this, not just this Bible, but the whole movement, is it is enticing people to do things that really aren't Christian, that make them feel like they're doing something that's Christian. And that's ultimately the problem. All this partisan nonsense is that it's all designed to make people think that they're doing something for Jesus when they're really not. They're doing something for Trump, and look, they're going to do something for whoever replaces Trump.
God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
Fight, fight, fight.
We must prepare for war. From this moment forward, the only mission of the newly restored Department of War is this: war fighting.
Amen. God bless you.
So this week, the regime announced that they were going to start using social media surveillance to coordinate with ICE. So they say they're specifically targeting for immigration violations and people who may be here illegally. So they're scanning social media content on multiple platforms, including places like Reddit, including places like Substack, to see if they can find content that is antagonistic toward ICE or pro-immigration. It's no secret that they're doing that or surprise to me. You know, in the past 2 weeks, the president signed the presidential memorandum NSPM-7, which I think we touched on briefly last week when I was here, but basically labels multiple kinds of First Amendment protected speech terrorism. And coupled with their actions with Doge that I covered in March on my Substack, I had a Microsoft cybersecurity expert come on and talk about where this may be leading. And she said this is leading to some kind of WeChat China type surveillance structure where we'll get social credits and be graded on what we say in public and be graded on our facial expressions, to see in this kind of Minority Report way. I don't know whether people have seen that Tom Cruise movie where you might be a pre-criminal and might be inclined to commit a crime before you do it. So that's everything they're talking about with this. And what's so dangerous about it that millions of Americans do not yet understand is I grew up in Christian nationalism. I was indoctrinated in that. So I understand that they view the world in a very concrete manner, that their way of seeing the world, that their way of interpreting the Bible, that their way of interpreting laws is the only way, it is the right way, it is God's way, and everyone else is wrong. And they can't compromise on that even an inch. And last week when I covered this on my Substack after we talked, I referenced Sam Alito getting caught on a hot mic saying that at an event. So they very much believe they can't compromise. So while most Americans think, well, we have, you know, people on the right and people on the left, and I'm trying to do my camera so that people can follow my hands, you know, and there's a spectrum of people on this spectrum of right and left. And when they say radical left liberals, the radical left, the woke radical left, they mean the people way over there on the far left. That's not what they mean at all. If you are just a scintilla off the spectrum from what Christian nationalists believe is right and correct, you are the left. So the whole spectrum is the left if you are left of them. And that's what they mean when they say that. So when they talk in this presidential memo about surveilling people and charging people with being terrorists, you could have voted for this 3 times, but believe same-sex marriage is fine. And therefore, you are a radical left terrorist because you do not adhere to their definition of what is a family and what is moral. And more Americans need to understand that that's how they're going to interpret this presidential memo. They're going to use Christian nationalist interpretations and force them on everyone. And if you don't line up with them exactly, you are a terrorist. And they are going to use Palantir's social media tools to root that out online and in public with flock cameras and other things like that.
The institution of slavery is not inherently evil. I know. Some of you guys are upset by that. Some of you guys are saying, I've been saying that for years.
You got people out here locking people up for no reason. I'm born here.
You said you're born here?
Yeah, I'm born here. Kings County Hospital, Brooklyn. I'm born here.
It is not inherently evil to own another human being. I know. Just wait. Some of you guys are really upset, but let's talk through this because it is very important that every Christian affirm what I just said. And not only should they affirm it, every Christian in today's society should be able to defend what I just said.
Federal agents detained this young man outside a Walgreens.
The characteristics that mark black culture as a generalization, they are evil, murderous, violent, bestial people. They steal, they kill, they destroy, they look like Satan in how they act. They are sinful to the core.
But at the end of the day, this is what it is to have tried to integrate into a community of people who are proactively trying to enslave us. So I know a whole lot of people want to say things like, well, we ain't got nowhere we can go. Guess what? Refugees are a thing. And you are going, the Great Migration, those were refugees, okay? There are going to be additional migrations now. Here's what Project 2025 envisions for America. And you need to know this because now Donald Trump is wholly acknowledging that not only is this the plan, but he's excited about making the plan permanent through the government shutdown, which is another reason we know that this is further evidence that the government shutdown has been their intention all along. But here are some of the things that you should know are contemplated in Project 2025. See if you can hear in any of these items something that is not already happening. Think about it. Here we go. They want to seize power within the federal government. Check. Implement a national backdoor ban on abortion. Check. Pack the Supreme Court with MAGA extremists. Check. End climate change protections and gut clean energy programs. Check. Reinstate crippling student debt payments. Y'all see that happening. Check, check, and check. Replace nonpartisan government employees with politically appointed Trump loyalists. Check. Pardon violent January 6th insurrectionists. That's been done. Abolish the Department of Education. Yep. Force states to report women's miscarriages and abortions to Trump's federal government. Hey, South Carolina. Hey, Texas. Love that legislation y'all implemented. Just so happened to be Project 2025 legislation. Repeal protections for LGBT. Yes. Reinstate the transgender military ban. Expel transgender service members. Happening. Cut taxes for the ultra wealthy. Already happened. Increase taxes for middle class families. Happening right now. Gutting Medicare, Social Security. Eliminating union and worker protections. Reinstating and expanding Trump's Muslim ban. All of that is happening. The list goes on, and I could do so many more. They have decided to completely eradicate civil fucking rights. Integration. And now we have to figure out what this looks like. What's the plan when racist vigilantes storm black neighborhoods with police escorts in 45's next term? I just need to know, because if you thought lynching campaign, now I said this in 2020, I'm just saying, if you thought lynching campaigns were a thing before, baby, let me tell you that we ain't seen nothing until we see how these folks wild out with their 3D printed guns and untraceable ammo. What's the lawsuit strategy? When Donald Trump finishes stacking the courts with explicit white nationalists, the Supreme Court has a 7-2 racist conservative majority, and they reinterpret the 13th Amendment to allow the return of race-based slavery. Did I miss that meeting? Because I just need the plan. Who's organizing the churches that many of us have no longer attending to be the safer space where we can organize because our phones are tapped and social media organized finally realize that we can't organize for Black liberation in broad daylight? Who's organizing the mutual aid drives? How are we preparing for the complete collapse of civil rights, such as they are, when violent racism is supported by the courts, your local police precincts, and armed militias? Where are you moving to? When they forcibly resegregate and bring back sundown towns, where are we going? What is the plan for when racist doctors refuse to perform surgeries, deliver your black ass baby, or admit your black body to the hospital and the local racist judge agrees and you are now forced out by the local militia? Did they build a pipeline of black medical professionals in your area to handle what happens when black folks are no longer allowed to use the local hospitals again? What's the plan for when our kids are kicked out of the local schools because of return to ordinances that permit racial screening? Is there an underground safe black schools movement? Because we're going to need one once your local 45 supporting school board gets going. How are we preparing for the explicit theft of black homes and property? The last time we were here, thousands of black people were kicked off their land and they fled with nothing but the clothes on their backs. What is the plan for that? I hope that crew has a plan for when the next black migration kicks off, as our folks have to flee the unrelenting racist violence that will be the hallmark of Donald Trump's next term. They don't need a new plan. The only reason they needed Project 2025 was because the plans they had before were how to succeed with slavery. They needed Project 2025 because they needed a plan on how to dismantle what the 60 years of integration had brought us. So they could have reused the old playbook. They only needed Project 2025 to return to America's base level. Where is our plan? Who are you planning with? Who are you organizing with? Who are you listening to? We got to think about what it's going to look like to build different systems and what it's going to look like to hide. Because that group of families, those 100+ families, they had nowhere to even fucking hide. They went apartment by apartment, kicking in doors, ravaging the entire community. They had black babies naked in zip ties. I wish we could go back in time and warn our ancestors about what was happening. But
straight up, the life that you had before is over. And so you will either adjust to it and there's a high chance you'll do well, or you won't adjust to it and there's a high chance you're going to die. If you're in a big city, it's time to get out. Obviously, it's way past that time. Those cities are clearly being taken. If you're not going to fight for it, if you are not going to fight, you must leave or you will be taken. This is coming, whether it's economic collapse or these invasions that are going on. You're going to have to fight or flee. If you freeze, you'll probably die, or you'll certainly be a slave. And so what are you going to do? That depends on your personal situation.